Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, so I was watching the YouTube video and something came up that I really wanted to talk about very briefly about my dating relationship business. The funny thing is the video had nothing to do with dating relationship businesses. It was talking about avoidance. It was talking about avoidant attachment styles, to be more specific. And I forget what he said, but it reminded me of something that I think a lot of people misunderstand about my business, and I think it's because of the way all the other ones are. So one of the things I noticed early on, not way before, a couple years before I started the dating relationship business, it was in college during the psychology classes. And it wasn't just that, because I was really studying NLP and going to college full time and also going to church every Sunday, reading my Bible twice a day. And one thing I kept hearing is about rules. Alright, so in psychology class, they were talking about the left brain, which is about rules, structure, organization, following the rules, being a good person. The right brain is the emotional brain. Then you had the lower so the right brain is the emotional, creative, spiritual brain. The lower reptilian brain is the fight or flight, instinctual brain. And it was always all about, well, don't use those brains. You should be in your logical brain. It's about rules, and the church was all about rules, and you can't do this and can't do that. And I just thought, what a weird system where we're being, and it's a word I'm using now, not back then, but a weird world where we're being programmed to deny, to shut down, to not use our right brain and our lower reptilian brain. My first thought, I was in psychology class, I don't remember which one, probably third or fourth one, and I'm just sitting there looking up at the professor, and I'm thinking, like, this is nuts. Like, what would happen if you did that to a computer? We said, okay, well, we're not going to use the audio card, we're not going to use the visual processor, and we're going to disconnect this over here. Well, the computer just wouldn't work. And then I thought about it, it's like, well, that's the same thing that's going on with humans. Like, humans don't make sense because they're not fully connected. And the funny thing is, the next Sunday church that I went to, they were talking about the same thing. Oh, you got to deny those, and you got to deny your natural instincts. You got to deny. You got to follow the rules. And I'm just like, I'm sitting here having this massive epiphany from Friday to Sunday, from class to church. And I'm like, this is not right. And I knew right then and there. I remember in psychology class, I remember saying, there has to be something better than this. I realized right then and there, it wasn't about denying this part of your brain or that part of your brain and shutting them down because, oh, well, that's the animalistic part of your brain. Oh, well, that's the emotional part. You can't let your emotions guide you and all this bullshit. And I knew at that moment, I'm going to find a way to teach people how to be whole brain. Now, you might think, oh, well, did you read that in a book? No, here I was 19 years old or something like that, maybe 20. And I was just like, this isn't right. We were meant to use our entire system. I had this, I call it intuition, feeling, common sense maybe, that we're supposed to use our entire system together as one, like a computer does. Because then it functions the way it's supposed to. So I literally prayed to God that night when I went to bed. I literally prayed and said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be, because what went through my mind when I was in psychology class that day when I was having that realization was, everything is moving forward. Science, technology, medicine, computer science, everything was marching forward, moving forward. And here I was in my third or fourth psychology class talking about how great Freud was and how much cocaine he did and how he did so much cocaine he had to have false wooden teeth. And because he was the most coked out, literally the most coked out professor in the room, everyone said, okay, well, he's the boss, we're going to follow his rules. And the professor was saying this with pride, and I'm just like, what kind of messed up system is this? Now, what I'm about to say is what this video is about, number one. Number two, I just realized right now as I'm talking, not only is this about my dating relationship business, this is about my life coaching and emotional healing business. I don't tell you how to live your life. I don't tell you what rules to follow. One thing I noticed back in the 90s and early 2000s as I was getting involved in all kinds of, seminars and therapies and this and that, is a lot of relationship coaches were saying, or even marriage counselors, psychologists, like, here's the right rules to follow. See, the reason why you're not doing well is because you're not living by these standards. And I'm like, well, what if they're Catholic? What if they're Christian? What if they're Buddhist? What if they're from another culture? What if they're from another country? This set of rules does not fit all. And then what if you go to a different therapist who was Muslim or Buddhist and they're like, no, those aren't the right rules. Let me tell you the right rules. I remember there was a stage in my probably mid-20s, when I went from one person, they're demanding that this is the way life's supposed to be. These are the rules. This is the way. And then I left them and I went and talked to someone at the grocery store. I don't know what it was. And then they said oh, no, that person's insane. Don't listen to them. And I kind of walked out, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. And I was in my car. I remember I was driving over the bridge in Vacaville, over the highway, and I burst out in tears because I didn't know what to think. And I realized when I was coming to the stoplight, everywhere I go, no matter who I talk to, they believe that their rules are the right rules. And I don't know if the cognitive dissonance applies to this, but I definitely had, it was like this realization I had it the year before, is that everyone lives by a different set of rules. But what happened with me was I realized I was trying to be nice to all these different people that were being so forceful. And it's like I was kind of going, okay, so these are the rules to live by. Okay, well, as long as we get along. And then I'd go down the street. Next thing you know, this person is saying the opposite. Oh, okay. And my brain was just ping pong. And I thought, and I broke down crying. And I was coming to a point like, well, what do I do? So I started having a memory of a girl in high school that I sat next to in science class. She was very sweet, very feminine, kind of a quiet person, just a really nice person, a heart of gold. Just like right now, honestly, that's probably one of the best people I've ever met in my life. And her name's Michelle Blessing. And I don't remember, but I believe it was the end of the semester. I think it might have been our senior year or junior, but I remember it was the end of the year, the last week, maybe 2 weeks before, and we're winding down. The teacher kind of said, yeah, we don't really have any more tests or whatever, so you guys can just talk today or something. Or he got us into a circle around the class, and he asked some question, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember she told me that she was a Mormon. And I felt really, really bad because I think I had even said something how Mormons are wrong or bad or something like that, because the church I went to, hey, the Mormons are bad. And I mean, I was a kid. I was impressionable. I think I was like 16 and a half, 17, something like that. And when she told me that, I felt really, really bad because this was like the nicest person in the world. And I remember, I think I even apologized to her, and it was I'm going to say it was a very sobering moment. Because beyond a shadow of a doubt, that's one person that God and Jesus loves, beyond a shadow of a doubt. So at an early age, my whole rules was getting kind of rocked and kind of shocked. And about the same time, it might have been either earlier that year Christmas or the next year Christmas, my girlfriend at the time, her brother had passed away in a bad car accident, and it was a really big thing in Napa. It was a really, really big thing. It was all over the news, and people were sad for a long, long time. And I remember after about 2 or 3 years of knowing her, we were having Christmas at her house, and I think I had just gotten there. I didn't know what was going on. Everybody was upset. I'm like, I kind of walked into this hurricane, and she was crying and screaming, and what happened was her mother yelled at her and said, "You're not allowed to bring up your brother's name. He's dead. It's over." And I was just like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, I didn't know. And then my girlfriend had screamed at me, like, oh, I'm not allowed to even bring up his name. We've never talked about him since his funeral. Like, since that day, we're not allowed to talk about him and bring up his name. And it was a really, I was like, and she's looking at me, and I was a kid. I didn't know what the hell to do. And mother, father was there, and they were really mad at her and trying to shut her down. And so I understood that this was their way. It was kind of their culture. They're Americans. They're white, but I think they were British, if I remember right. Not British, but they were that was their heritage. Might have been German or a mix, but the point being was like this was their rule, and it wasn't just this immediate family. It was their whole relatives. Like they had a very strict way of, this is where you go to school. This is who you marry. This is the way it is. And even her mother, one day, they sent me down to their grandparents in SoCal, and the first thing they did said, yeah, her mother, we introduced you to her husband right here at the kitchen table, at the dining table. I'm like, what do you mean? They picked out her husband. Now, in my early 20s, maybe mid-20s, I was hanging out at UC Davis, which is just up the road from Napa, not too far, about 40 minutes or hour maybe. And I remember I met this guy, and I was handing out flyers for my business. He goes, oh, no, I don't need that. And I'm like, well, why is that? He goes, oh, my father's, he's already picked a wife out for me. He was from the Middle East, by the way. And I was like, wait, what? Now, I'd never heard of this before, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, what? And he was like, no, you don't understand. Like, he really looked. He took his time. He was looking for a certain girl with a certain personality, and he goes, he did a great job. I'm like, oh, okay, and like kind of rocked my world because I didn't know anything about that. The funny thing is, in psychology class, our teacher had brought up different forms of marriage, and that was one of them where the parents pick it out. And she said, like, who do you, what culture do you think works best? And so most people said, oh, no, parents should pick it out. That's going to be horrible. And the teacher said, no, believe it or not, but a lot of times their marriages tend to be very, very happy marriages. Not always, but like, and she mentioned, and I think there was a girl in class who was from India or one of these cultures and said, oh, yeah, my father had, picked out, the husband or something like that. I forget how it worked out. And did a really, really good job. And I think he said it took 2 years or something like that, long time. And he picked out the greatest guy for her, something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And so it was kind of like this discussion, like, well, what culture, what rules work best? And in some cases, this one works best. In some cases, that one works best. And so we had different, not arguments, but like discussion, pro this or con that or whatever. And one of the arguments was, and it wasn't just her, but it was that guy I met at UC Davis. It was the same thing. Like, no, you don't understand. Like, my parents did a really good job, or my father did a really good job. Like, our values match, and the way he treats me or she treats me, like, Michael, it is like I couldn't have done as good a job. And one of the arguments, like, when you're a young kid, you're 20 years old or 22 or whatever. Like, you don't know. You don't understand life, you don't understand the relationships, you don't understand how things work, and blah, 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 blah. And there was a really good argument for that. So I thought, that's okay. Like right now, me at my age in my 50s, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if I could go back, there would be relationships I would never even talk to. I would have walked the minute they even looked in my direction. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean because like we just didn't work. We didn't fit. So then in my early 30s, probably 35, 36, something, I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I was going to clubs in the city for the first time in my life. I thought, I'm going to kind of delve into this, and I did, very much so. And I met this girl outside, really nice girl, and I don't remember why I was out front of the club, but I think I was waiting for someone, I don't remember, but I started talking to this girl. And she goes, oh, what do you do? I was like, well, I'm a personal development coach. She goes, well, what do you mean? What's that? I'm like, well, I do something called neuro-linguistic programming. She goes, what's that? Well, what's a deeper form of psychology, blah, 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 communication. Oh, okay, like, what is it? And I go, well, now here's the thing. This is the reason why I don't like using this phrase. I go, well, you've probably heard of the phrase life coach, because at the time it was a really big thing. It was like, even our college teacher, she said, Michael, you'd be a great life coach. And I kind of even cringed at it. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to tell people how to live their lives. So I told this girl, like, well, I'm a life coach. She goes, oh, yeah, I know what that is. And I go, really? She goes, yeah, my friend's a life coach. I'm like, seriously? And she pulls out her friend's business card and hands it to me. It's like, oh, it's a really nice, clean, fresh, professional business card. I was like, wow. Like, I said, well, where did she train? And she goes, well, what do you mean, where did she train? I'm like, well, where did she get certified? Where did she get her training from? Like, who did she study under? And she just goes, well, nowhere. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? She goes, well, I go, so what makes her a life coach? She just like has opinions or like, and she goes, no, she's Catholic. And I'm like, what? She literally said, yeah, she tells people how to live their lives. And I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of ended the conversation and walked away because I don't tell people how to live their lives. I don't tell people how to have a relationship. It's like, it's what do you want to do with your life? What's blocking you? What I'm doing is I'm facilitating people from clearing blockages. And the funny thing is a lot of those blockages come from people around you that say, no, don't do that. Even though your heart's desire is like, but that's what I want to do. No, that's wrong. And here's why. And people are always doing that. And narcissists do that a lot and really screw up people's systems. So then there was another girl that I met, and it was at the same club, by the way. It was probably a month later, 2 months later. And she hands me her business card and I go, oh, you're a life coach? Because I told her I was a life coach. She goes, oh, wow, me too. And I'm like, really? Because she was really young, and I mean really young. I was like, so what exactly do you do? And she goes, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, who did you train under? She goes, for what? I said to be a life coach, and she goes, well, I didn't train under anyone. She goes, there's trainings for this? I go, yeah, there's like 2-year-long programs where you go for 5 weeks and then you study for 3 months and then you go for another 5-week training and then and on and on. I go, I've been doing it. At that point, I'd probably been doing it for 12 years. I go, I have over 50 certifications and trainings and 5-week and this and this and that. She goes, really? I go, yeah. I go, so like I literally said, what makes you a life coach? She goes, well, I read a book. And I said, you read a book? I go, how many? She goes, 1. And I said, what was it about? She goes, it was about goal setting. And at the time, she was charging $150 per session. And I'm looking at her like, what? Now, this is back in the probably year 2004 or something, approximately. Then I met another girl who said, yeah, I'm a life coach. I'm a certified hypnotherapist. Now I'm thinking, now again, this was a couple months later. And I'm thinking, okay, finally I met someone who's actually been to training and certified. And I go, well, who did you study under? And it's someone I'd never heard of. I was like, it was fine. And I go, well, how many trainings you've been to? She goes, oh, well, just one. I go, well, how long? It was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks? She goes, no, it was 2 days. So from that point on, it was actually the girl that said I'm Catholic and the girl who said I read one book. I was like, I'm never going to tell people I'm a life coach. That is not, because I think it was such a diluted word. And the real thing was, it was the girl that read the one book and the Catholic girl, like they thought they had the authority to tell people how to live their lives and the values to have and the rules to have and the beliefs to have. And I just thought, wow. In NLP trainings, it's not about that. It's about we help people heal their values so their own natural values come up. Their values, not mine, not yours, not someone else's. We all have a unique set of individual values, and they're also organized in order. Ordered in different combinations. So your top value, number one value, might be health, or it might be intelligence, whereas mine is love, and my second one is this, and that. But your second one might be something totally different, and that's completely fine. In fact, that's the way it's supposed to be. So one of the things we do is if you have values conflict, we will do a healing process where we can integrate that to where now either the value will change or it will go higher up the ladder on your your top 10 or top 15 values or whatever. Another thing we do is if you have beliefs conflict where one belief says, oh yeah, I got to make money to survive, but then you got a belief that money is the root of all evil, and then you have this conflict like I can't make money because I'm afraid I'm going to go to hell. So I don't tell you what to believe. I heal the conflicts that you have to where you can start having more clarity and flow without resistance, so you can believe what you believe and be comfortable with it and flow through life. So there's another person that I'd met, and let's see, he basically introduced himself, and I think it was at a one-day seminar, an intro or something, and I think it was in San Jose, or no, it was in Sacramento. And he handed me his business cards. It said marriage counselor, etc., etc. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. He goes, what do you do? And I handed him my card. He goes, what do you do? So we talked a little bit. He goes, wow. He goes, I'd like to hear more about that. I was like, he goes, why don't you come over my way next week and we'll sit down and talk and stuff. I was like, yeah, sure. So he goes, so like, what do you do? And he goes, well, how'd you learn? I go, well, I went to college for this many years, and I have this many credits in psychology, and I've read over 200 books on NLP, hypnosis, psychology, human behavior, timeline therapy, etc. He goes, what's NLP? And I'm like, and I assumed he knew what NLP was, because at the seminar, the people that were doing the seminar had been trained in NLP, and I was like, well, you don't know what that is? He's like, no. So I explained to him how I had over 51 certifications, and I've done this training and that training, and there's this person, that person, doctor so-and-so, doctor this, doctor that, blah, blah, blah. And I go, like, what about you? It's like, like, where'd you go to college? He goes, oh, well, I didn't. I go, oh, okay, so, but where'd you train? Where'd you get certified? He goes, oh, well, I didn't. I'm like, so what? And I literally said, so what qualifies? He goes, well, I read a book. I go, you read a book? I go, how many? He literally said one. Now, let me say this last piece, and this will probably get at the point of all this. So he based everything on, well, I just tell people how to live their lives and how to, basically what rules to follow, and here's how a marriage should be, and blah, 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 blah. And yet the guy had never been married. And him and his girlfriend were fighting like cats and dogs because he broke all that stuff down. And it was just another person saying, like the Catholic girl, like, oh, well, I tell them what rules to live by and what to believe. And I'm just like, well, what if they're not Catholic? Now, to me, this just horrified me. I was like, yeah, that's not me. That's not what I do. And people were trained in really quality NLP trainings. Like, that's not what they do either. It's not about what we believe at all. It has nothing to do with us. Your goals have nothing to do with what we think you should do. It's all about what do you want to do and what's holding you back. What's keeping you from getting what you want out of life? Now, here's the final piece I'm going to say until I get to what I do. So I remember going to church. I was really, really involved. They had made me an associate pastor, and at one point in time, Pastor Rex, we would always go downstairs, make sure everything was cleaned up, take out the garbage, and make sure the chairs are pushed in. That was the kitchen area. Then we'd come up and go through the pews, make sure paper was taken out. So we essentially did the basic cleaning and organizing and stuff. It took us maybe 30 minutes, maybe a little longer. And we would always walk down the middle of the church to the front doors. And at one point, there was this, just forgot the name. It's a set of beliefs and rules that a church goes by. Like, this is and there's a word for that, and I forget what it is. But it's the church's beliefs and rules, essentially. And I'm like, well, what's this? And he goes, well, this is what we believe. We believe that in the Trinity, or we believe in that. He goes, some churches don't believe in the Trinity. They believe in there's like the singular God. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. And he goes, yeah. And then he started explaining that, we were a Baptist church, Southern Baptist church from Arkansas, but we moved out here, and then we decided to become a non-denominational because we don't believe those rules anymore. I'm like, really? Okay. And I always knew the church had a Southern Baptist kind of a core background belief system, but it was adjusted. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, so what do you mean? He goes, well, and then I go, well, he goes, well, the church like one block down the street on the other side of the street on the corner. I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, they're just like us. They come from the South, and they're Southern Baptists, and they became non-denominational just like us. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he goes, well, but they don't believe what we believe. I'm like, what do you mean? And he started breaking down, well, they don't believe in this, but we do. And we believe in this, and they don't. But they believe in this, and we don't believe in that. And I'm like, what the hell? I go, what? I go, why? He goes, Michael, I can't remember the number, but I believe he said 10,000. I think he said in Baptist churches alone throughout the United States, there's 10,000 different belief systems, or 1,000, or it was a big number. And I was like, what? Now, mind you, I wasn't talking about Catholics, or we weren't talking about Catholics versus Mormon versus, Christian beliefs, right? Christian type church beliefs. I'm like, what are you talking about? Or Seventh-day Adventists, and then I forget, there's another one, there's a couple other ones. I'm like, wait a minute. So even though we're all basically Southern Baptist style churches, we don't, he goes, no. He goes, we all have different beliefs and we all have different whatever. And he goes, all you do, you go to the front of the church and it'll be right by the door. I was like, you're joking? He goes, no. So I thought, if the very same type of church, Baptist churches, don't have the same beliefs at the door, don't have the same values, the same rules or whatever, whose beliefs am I supposed to believe? Because here's the deal. Every single church believes that their way, their values, their rules, their beliefs are the right ones and everyone else is wrong. Everyone. Not just the one that are different types like Catholic, Mormon, Seventh-day or whatever, but even the church down on the corner that has the same type of system that we have, non-denominational, formerly Southern Baptist, blah, 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 blah. And this is what Pastor Rex said. He goes, Michael, they're very good people, but they're all going to hell. Now, when I was a kid, we went to one church for about 6 years until we moved to Wisconsin. And then we went to one church there for about 2 years. My mother really did not like the minister or whatever he was called. I don't think he wasn't called the pastor. There's another word for it. So we went to this other church, totally different beliefs, right? So now we got to learn these new beliefs. No, this is not those. They're wrong over there. We're right. Our church is the right church. We believe the right things. And then we moved back to California, and I went to church where I was at there for a while. And then we moved back to Napa. Then we moved back to Vacaville, then back to Napa. Then I went to a church there for a while, and then I went to college, and I kind of joined this church group in college, and it was always different. And everyone, our church, our beliefs are the right ones. The former church you went to, Michael, they're wrong, and they're going to hell. So now I've got Pastor Rex telling me this, and those people down the street are going to hell, and I was just like, it broke my heart. I was like, this is insane. Here's what it was. So let me get this straight. So we all read out of the same book, believe in the same God, but we have all these radically different beliefs, and we all believe each other's going to hell. I said, if we, the same exact type of church, can't have the same beliefs or values, who am I supposed to believe? And I was like, there is something majorly flawed in the system. Now, I've been going through my awakening now. I didn't pop yet, but I was definitely waking up, and I was becoming really aware of all, instead of just blindly, yeah, they're wrong, they're going to hell, we're the good ones, instead of just blindly believing whatever I was told, I just remember thinking, like, something's not right. And the whole thing in psychology class where, hey, you got to use your left brain, you got to follow the rules, because the right brain's the emotional brain, it's all over the place, and all this bullshit, and I just thought, man, there's just something not right. So luckily I was involved in a higher level of personal development, NLP, Ericksonian hypnosis, and then I got involved in energy healing, and I started to notice something. Here's the difference. So the other systems were all about dividing and separating your brain. Like they didn't want the left and right brain to communicate, which was to me a really weird, I just thought there's something wrong with that. So here I'm going to these individual training, separate courses, 2, 3, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever. And I started noticing everything was about healing a part and then integrating it back into the whole so it could become one. And I remember Pastor Rex teaching me, like, the phrase "at one" means atone. I go, really? He goes, yeah. It literally means not to be divided. And I was like, huh, okay. And it literally meant what we were talking about in NLP, Ericksonian hypnosis, and timeline therapy is you begin to heal these parts of you, and then they come back inside the core you, and now it's, instead of being divided and separate, now it's at one with you. Meaning it's not like a drop of water you put back into the cup. It's one. It's not the drop plus the water. It's one. There's just one. There's not two, and there's no separation. And what this does, it gets rid of conflict, and it's like, oh, I really, really like this. Like, this was something I was like, okay, this makes sense. And it felt good to my heart. It felt good. It made sense. It brought clarity. It's like, okay, I'm going down this path. And here's the really cool thing. Then I got involved in then Ericksonian hypnosis was saying the same thing. It's all about integration, right? And then Virginia Satir, a famous marriage family therapist in, I think it was around UC Santa Cruz Hills, she said the same thing. It's always about integrating parts, not separating. I thought, okay. And during this time I was getting involved in energy healing, and I remember that they use different terms. So in NLP we use parts integration. There's, we have parts that break off from trauma, childhood, and this and that, and trauma and that kind of stuff separates you. And during energy healing, they were talking about crystallization, where these energies will crystallize and become solid, and that's when things become a problem. So one day it dawned on me, like, oh, energy healing is using different terminologies, but they mean the same thing as parts. So you get this, like, I'm forgetting the word that they use. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I use this word every day. So the thing is they use a different word, and one of the things is crystallization. So when you do energy healing, it melts this structure energy was never supposed to be stuck in a structure, in a form, okay? Like, kind of like a crystal, like an icicle hanging from the roof, right? That's crystallization. And what happens when you get crystallized, you get stuck, and that's where you start getting frustrated with life, and that's where you get angry and stuck, and it becomes a pattern of sadness or guilt or shame or whatever, and you want to get out. So energy healing essentially melts that, and now all that energy comes back into the core you, and it integrates with the core energy. And now you become a little bit more powerful. And not only that, but you begin to flow, because it's not stuck energy. It doesn't, like, it's kind of like a car. You got the gas brake, it's herky jerk. Like, you want to go, but it's like you have the gas and the brakes on at the same time. So my whole belief system is, number one, integrating into the core energy of who you are, integrating your parts, integrating, the energy source that's outside of you that needs to come back inside. My other belief is, I don't tell you what to believe. If you come to me like, well, what way should I be? I'm like, well, what way do you want to be? So what I do is I heal people's parts. I heal their energy, energy charges. They're called charges. That's the word I'm looking for. So these charges will spark, okay? Because it's like an energy that's not grounded. When your energy is not grounded, they spark, and you have energy, and you freak out, you panic attack and anxiety, and you get angry over the top, But when you begin to integrate more of these and you begin to start grounding your energy, all of a sudden energy starts to flow, and the little things, or even big things that used to make you freak out, suddenly you're just like calm and in the present moment. Now, when it comes to relationship healing and relationship coaching, or even dating coaching, it's very much about what we just talked about. It's all about energy to me, okay? Now, I'm going to say the old therapists, the old psychologists, the marriage family counselors, the old even dating and relationship coaches, they're like, here's the rules. You got to follow the rules. These are the right rules, and those people over there, they're wrong. See how the relationships are bad? I don't do that. I'm just saying, look, we need to connect with our own energy first. So one of the first things I do when I work with people is teach them emotional grounding techniques. Now for men, they're like, well, why would I learn that? Because now she can connect with you. If you're stuck up in your head, she can't connect with who you truly are on the inside, the emotional being. That is what listen closely, a relationship, a relationship is all about. It's about emotions. Now, the one thing that everyone agrees about, whether it's energy healing or hypnosis or psychology or NLP, the right brain is the emotional, creative, spiritual brain, period. It just is. It's not, I remember learning this, I don't think it was the Psychology 1 or 101, but it was one of the early classes. And the left brain is the business brain. It's about business, math, and science. It's really good at it. But when you come home, you're supposed to be in your right brain to connect with your wife on a deeper, more meaningful, emotionally fulfilling level. This is the whole reason why you got into a relationship. Not so you can follow a set of rules. No, it's so you could feel love, so you can feel this wonderful experience emotionally together. Now, when I started noticing all these different art forms, from Western science all the way to the Eastern Buddhism, and I learned this from Buddhism too, it's the same thing. The right brain is the relationship brain, the social brain, the left brain is the business brain, the logical brain. So I started noticing some commonalities, and I thought, okay, I'm on the right track here. So essentially, what do? I help you to reconnect with your emotions and feelings, because your partner, whether you're a man or woman, they're not going to be able to connect with who you are emotionally. See, if you're disconnected, they can't connect with you. It's not neurologically, emotionally, or energetically or physically possible. They can't emotionally connect with you. So I teach both of you to ground yourselves emotionally, to drop down inside, and I teach you a series of patterns and techniques and a skill set to be able to develop this more and more, stronger and stronger, and more powerful over time. I teach people how to have deeper connections emotionally in a much more meaningful, emotionally fulfilling way. That's what I do. If I could leave it in a core. Now I know women understand that, but men are like, meaningful, emotionally fulfilling? What are you talking about? What's that? So the other thing I do is I teach men how to open up to the right brain, because it is absolutely important to have a relationship in the right brain. If you're stuck in your left brain coming home from work, she can't relate to you. She can't connect to you on a social relationship level. That's why you got married. See, we live in a modern world where it's technology's taken over. Everything is logic. Rules driving the car down the road, following the laws, taxes, business rules, business laws. Now we got computers and technology. Everything is left brain. So men, well, we were born using our left brain. We don't use our right brain very much. And so men are like, yeah, they take right to it, and they come home in their business brain. Well, yeah, but the rules are, this is the way the rules are. And it's like, let me tell you something, guys. Rules will never satisfy a woman. Rules will never leave a woman feeling emotionally fulfilled. Rules will never let or allow a woman or make a woman feel emotionally content. So in the old days, men had to use their right brain to survive, to check in on their cattle and their animals, to make sure they're healthy, because the right brain can do that. The left brain can't do that. Left brain's completely disconnected from the five senses. It has no ability or skills to be able to notice when your own farm animals or your dogs or cattle or whatever are dying. You could be dying right in front of your wife. You're like, hey, your cow's sick. Well, how do you know? How can you tell? Because I can see it. I'm using my eyeballs. And you're like, what do you see? When you're in your left brain, it's a different processor. So from the caveman all the way up until about 1990, well, not really 1990, probably like 1910 or something like that, we had to use our right brain as men, and so we could come home and tune into our wife and our daughters and understand them much better than we do now. Most men now have no connection. So all I do is teach you how to do this, because it allows women to feel a lot better. The communication flows. Here's the thing, you actually understand each other when you're using the same processor. And when you're in a relationship, you're supposed to use the relationship brain, because that's what a relationship's all about. It's why you're there. Now, there's some people like, no, I don't really care about that. I'm just logical. Then you need to marry a logical person. Now, I'm not saying you have to. See, that's the thing. You're like, oh, so I have to do it. No, if you don't want to, don't. I'm just saying it'll function a lot better. Some people are just logical beings, and that's absolutely okay. Now, for me in my course, probably not a good idea to take my course, because my course is all about connecting on a deeper, meaningful, more emotionally fulfilling level, because it feels a lot better. It is, man, life becomes the love, the bliss, the joy, the harmony. It is just amazing. And it makes her feel good too, really good. And this is the biggest argument between men and women. Women have been screaming about this for thousands of years, and men are like, okay, well, what rules do you want me to follow? And she's like, oh my God, it has nothing to do with rules. So the other thing I do is I teach men how to speak the right brain language. Yes, there's a left brain and a right brain language. If you're speaking the left brain, she's going to say, look at you and be like, why won't you speak my language? Why are you speaking Greek? And I don't speak Greek. And men are like, what are you talking about? Guys, there's two separate languages. The logical, linear, external left brain language, and the right brain, the internal, mentally stimulating and emotionally fulfilling language. By the way, those two phrases, mentally stimulating, emotionally fulfilling, mean a lot to a woman. Now, right now, you're like, why? So what I do is I teach you how to connect in these ways, to open up in this way, and be internal and emotionally grounded, because all these things allow a woman to feel connected, bonded, and it allows her to feel spacious, open, free, like she can breathe, like her whole heart and body opens up and relaxes, and she opens up to you. Now, do you have to do this? No. I wouldn't recommend paying me $5,000 to learn how to do this if you don't want to do it, but hey, to each his own. It's kind of like going to a boxing coach and paying him a lot of money to teach you how to be a boxer when you don't want to be a boxer. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. What church you go to, what beliefs you have, I don't really care. As long as they're not hurtful and don't attack people. Other than that, that's fine. I'm open. Do what works for you. And that's another thing. We all have different systems, belief systems, value systems, and a system of rules that we have inside. The first thing we want to do is get rid of the conflicts, because otherwise you're going to have this internal battle. The next thing that you have to realize, okay, now that we have things in alignment and everything's flowing, you get to pick and choose what works for you. I remember about 25, 30 years ago when Tony Robbins says, hey, take what works and put aside what doesn't. Don't throw it in the trash, because down the road you might learn something and be like, oh, that tool set, that skill set will help me out. Because right now your system, that skill set or that tool may not function in your system right now, but down the road it may. So that's the thing, is a lot of these things, well, some of it will work with you immediately, and some of it you're going to have to learn, develop, and understand things on a deeper level. Okay, let me say it this way. If you want to make a woman happy, if you want women to open up and melt into your arms, and her heart, it just sings for joy and has this emotionally fulfilling warmth and love and comfort and contentment inside, and she connects that and all those emotions with you, I would recommend, and again, you don't have to do it, I would highly recommend that you take my course, learn how to open up to the right brain, learn how to speak the internal language, and then learn how to be internal, and then learn how to be emotionally grounded. Just take the last 15, 20 seconds of what I just said and have any woman in your life listen to that. Trust me, she's going to say, oh yeah, that's what I want. Technically the last 42 seconds or 44 seconds. Alright, so I don't teach you what rules, values, or beliefs to live by. I teach you how to do a different set of skills, from communication, grounding yourself emotionally, etc., etc. I just teach you how to do it. It's up to you to do it, whether you choose to do it or not. That's it. I also help you to understand why it's important, what's it about, and the what ifs, like what if this and what if that. That's what I do, and you go live your life. You can live by your own rules, your own values, do as you please. Alright guys, that's it. God bless you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned something from it. If you liked the video, go ahead and click subscribe, click the like button, go ahead and make a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And remember, you can leave a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. Alright guys, see you in the next video. Bye.